Perfect. That's bad. Okay. お願いします。
お願いします。
Okie dokie, great. Very good. Let's loosen up a little bit. Push it down the wrist a little bit. Roll the nails to the side. Get to the top. Yeah. Maybe settling the feet, working front to back. Right, okay, side to side. Arms a little bit, rolling, pulling the arms out a little bit from the body. Nice and gentle, rolling over the top of the arm. Nice. Right, a little bit of rotation. Great, and just free the legs a little bit, let the back foot free out of the ground. Especially focusing on kind of freeing the hip. So free the ankle, but you're really kind of opening the hip. Good. Just take the legs a little bit deeper and then just start to feel that you're kind of going to sink into it as well. Just going to sink into it, free the hip. Press it down towards the ground with the knee. Wow. Yeah. Okay, just passing the body around in a circle, nice and easy. Not too deep, especially on the back. And changing the direction. Nice. Step into a little bit inside outside work. But make it a little bit bigger, coming all the way down and roll it to the top with the arm. Just let the arms kind of follow the movement. You can do a few things with them. Main things are just following the movement. Great, perfect. Just take that same movement now with the arms. This kind of circular pattern, kind of coming up through the center line. And feeling like you pass the hands down the circumference of the sphere. Let the movement pass through the legs as well. So the same movement happening with the legs. A little bit bowing out at the end of the movement. And you start to get the breath into it as well. So you probably feel this is kind of breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. Obviously, like a slow movement, slow breath, fast movement, sharper breath. Keep going. That's it, nice. Great. Yeah, and this what playing with also kind of really mobilizing the back as well. So especially feel like you're not only like motivating the hands from the back, but feel like this, especially this like splitting movement. Play with the idea of kind of play a little bit, so a little bit coming out of the structure, but feel that you're kind of playing with this kind of whole mobility. So it's basically trying to get the feeling that your shoulders or your arms don't just stop at the shoulders at this kind of joint. So feel that you want to kind of get the feeling that the arms are basically working from the back of the body. Same kind of thing we're working with the sword, the jaw, and later with the kind of 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒄 movement, but that sense of kind of spreading the movement out from the back. That's it. Yeah, great. Great. Okay. Now you're going to do similar thing, but working with the kind of sphere. Let the hands now rotate together. So explain a little bit more with the rotation in the hip as well. You could do this kind of static here with the hip, but just play with now the sense that you're kind of rolling the hip, rolling the hands, changing the hip, here, changing the hand work. So now the hands are kind of, you want them to work like poles apart. This way, kind of rotate around the sphere again. It's useful to don't just imagine like a circle as well. Imagine like a sphere. So it's a kind of three-dimensional movement of the body. So useful to do actually with a ball if you can get something this kind of size, or even a small ball. That sense of doing it here. Just play with that sense the hands are kind of connected, and the key thing now is that sense that they're connecting in with the hip work. As the hip open closes, the hands are being guided by it. That's it. That's it. There we go. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, now just let it breathe a little bit. So as you come into it, again, notice the kind of out breath and the in breath is going to kind of affect the movement. But But play now with this feeling that the kind of sphere that you have will be kind of malleable, kind of flexible. So play with, again, the idea of being able to mobilize the back through the movement. Think also like about drawing a bow, something like this, where you're kind of splitting the hands apart. That sense of kind of squeezing, opening. And then once you've got that, try and play with it in a kind of a little bit of a rotation. So you're doing kind of four direction things. Great, and then you just take your sphere now for a walk. So you just start moving with the feet a little bit. Play first with like really simple steps. You just focus really on like shifting out. Again, play with like side steps, movements to the back, movements stepping in. Once you feel kind of comfortable there, you can kind of keep that connection through the hips and the arms, and just play with a little bit of rotation that make it a little bit more complex. Yeah. You can also do this with the resistance. That's good. That's good. Right, good. Yeah, just play with this also. This is why resistance bands are really great, because they give you kind of liveliness in the hand. So it's the worst instruction in martial arts history is relax. It tells someone to relax. Not only doesn't mean anything, but people, you don't generally know how to kind of relax in the right kind of way. So don't think about, you think about, if I relax the joint, then this kind of training is kind of, where does it go? And the other side of that is I don't want to be rigid with it. So you don't want to be working in this kind of area. But if you imagine that you've got a kind of elasticity in the joints, between the joints. So imagine now, focus on the connections here, but focus on the space between the hands. In the same way, this is why the weapon works really good for us, because it focuses us on an object that's not you. So you're basically playing with extending your feeling outside the body. So just play now with that sense, like, and it's that same feeling, but play with the kind of elasticity between the joints, between your hands in this case. And the same thing's happening with the feet. So also, if you do this with the resistance band, you can also do this with the lower body and play with those kind of connections as well. So just play with that sense of the body's something like an elastic tension. You don't want to be like loose, and you don't want to be rigid. You want to be like elastic, but with good structure behind it. Yeah, good. So just make it a little bit more complex now. Think about going to the ground as well. So think about kind of rolling down with the body. So kind of open it out, taking it to the ground, rolling back. So just play a little bit more with the kind of lower body, and that feeling that you can kind of press down through the ground as well. Just keep those connections kind of alive through it. Let the movement kind of breathe. then the other idea you can play with here is if you imagine that you have like a heavy basketball, like a medicine ball. Think about also this ability to drop down, but also think now about the feeling that you can actually drop the weight into the ground. So as you go with it now, think about you've got this connection, you're connected into it. Then think about as you go down, think about kind of boom, pressing the ball into the ground. The first feeling to get is that sense of entering in. So it's the same with the sword, but that sense of boom, dropping the body into the ground. Exaggerate it to the point where it's really super obvious. And also I want the structure to be fall into place. So there's a kind of structure behind that in the lower body, so the upper body can kind of fall into it. Not in that kind of space, I feel like I'm falling out. But just play with this idea now. Like you're really dropping it in. And it's going to come from that kind of the center of the body. Drop it. That's it. Oh. Yeah, that's it. Right. And then play with as you kind of bounce it into the ground, you drop it in. Play with now the receiving out of it. So it's really like an extension of this kind of movement we're doing with the kind of swing. But think about dropping it in, that, and then the rebound out. Just continue that movement with it. So you're going from the ground, bump, rebound, continue it. Bump, rebound, continue it. Again, try and set the body up so that it's going to receive the ground through it and be able to kind of bring you out of it. Just play a little bit with the hands up. Yeah. So really feel that kind of motion coming directly from the ground. Right, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Right. But that's a really kind of exaggerated way of doing this. This now is a nice exercise to try if you can. You've got like if you imagine like you're in water up to the waist and you've got like a beach ball or something. Imagine that it's just on the surface of the water. So what you're doing now is that same thing. The hands are just going to work from the top, but imagine you're kind of pressing in under the water, and then you're obviously going to get that reaction up when it comes up to it. So just think about that potential kind of submerging it and then receiving it out. Again, you're working with the pressure from the ground. That, and then just kind of move with it. So feel that you can kind of move the ball this way. You're going to work right from the top rather than the bottom and the top. Just working from the top of it, but think about kind of pressing it in and then receiving it as it comes up, meeting it and continuing with it. So it's the same movement, same feeling, just a little bit more subtle. But again, you want to kind of liven this in the hands. So if you imagine like a ball playing with a ball in water, it's going to kind of respond to your movement, but also kind of moving with its own initiative. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, especially in that sense, like that spring up from the ground and meeting it. We'll use this later with the sense of the kinaragari. So that sense of being able to enter the ground with the weight, and that sense of the equal response out, and then meeting that kind of force. So think about like the pressure down, and especially like full, that kind of feel, that kind of pressure up, then I'm going to kind of control it as it comes up. So just think about that sense of like a coiled spring. Full, full. That's it. And we'll go something a bit more specific first, so working with a koku. Think now, like this is kind of exaggeration of the 𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂. So think about, you've got pressure from above the wrist, or on the side, but the pressure is kind of coming here from the joint. So think again about kind of receiving this down. You're going to set the body up, and then just think about basically that, using this kind of coil in the ground, from the ground, pressing up, extending up. And you can also start to add the twist in the hip. The big thing here is exaggerate the sense of dropping in and rolling up with the body. Yeah, what we're often doing in 𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 is basically cheating with the sense of coming in with the spiral. So you end up, you're playing with this kind of structure. Think in this case, playing with, you've got the weight here, you're going to load the person up and then kind of press them out. Or not load the person up, you're going to draw their balance out and then extend them out. But play with this kind of feeling now. So that same kind of sensation, but now using the whole joint with the hand in a kind of 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂. I'm going to try and organize the ground through the structure of the body. I'm trying to pass it through the body to the hands. So. Great, just open this out now. So speak a little bit more like the mechanics of 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂, but stick with it like a 𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂. So you've got like the sensor coming down, rolling the person up out of balance, out of the structure. And then you're going to roll the hip to one side, let the hands come out, and then think about the suppression at the end of it. You can do this without moving the foot, you can do it with the foot kind of coming in. But think about that sense of the hips kind of coming into action, and the hands kind of going into like a really suppressive kind of movement. So you've got the ground underneath it, pressing up out of it with the strong extension, and then choose a side. Start to roll open the hip, follow it through, and pressing through the whole structure. Yeah, that's it. So the main thing with this technique, especially, I mean, in terms of the solo move as well, is that it doesn't become a kind of pushing exercise, as if I'm kind of trying to push the person away from my structure and get them away from me. Think about, I'm just trying to change the relationship where I'm basically on top and being able to suppress them. So the easiest visualization with this I find is like, think like you've got a really heavy blanket in the hands. So you've got like, you're raising it up, you're coming over, and then you're pressing it down into the ground. So imagine you're kind of laying something really heavy down. You've got that sense of the weight here in the body, but I'm not looking in this case to kind of push them away or anything like that. I want them to kind of be in a position where I've basically got the control over the structure. So in terms of solo work, think about, and you're just trying to organize your structure. Always keep the ground with you. Organize in a way where you feel like you're utilizing the ground through the body. Yeah, right. That's it. Okay, good. And one last one to finish, a little bit more lively. Think about one side at a time. And again, going to the idea, you're going to go like into a kind of more of a 𝒖𝒂𝒃 feeling with it. So think about, in this case, you've got that same drop. You can do it with the hand. Give yourself freedom with the kind of positions of the hand. But what you want to think about now is like dropping into the ground, continuing it and following it this way. So you move like kind of 𝒂𝒂𝒃 moves, but I'm basically creating an impulse into the ground. Dunk, and then continuing it into another direction. So playing this a little bit, you can do this obviously any of the techniques we've got in terms of, like if you think about 𝒂𝒂𝒃 techniques, this is full of examples like this, but mostly get that feeling of the impulse, continue it. So, wow. Yeah, good. Okay, perfect. Take a 𝒂𝒂𝒃. We will follow a kind of similar pattern. Okay, perfect. So we'll follow the same kind of thing. So just think about shoulder width apart or hip width apart, and just play with the kind of up-down movement. So you've got the grip in the sword. Just get that kind of feeling here, and then again, start to really link it with the relationship to the ground. So let the lower body drive the movement. Give the back freedom, the spine freedom. Just working on kind of mobility. So nothing kind of rigid. And the key thing now, that obviously the difference is you're trying to affect the sword, especially the tip of the sword. So you're trying to get the tip in motion, and think with this one as well, there's no delay in terms of the motion. So try and have a sense that straight away as you get that impulse from the foot, that the tip's in motion. Tip's in motion. And think about later taking this into a kind of 𝒂𝒂𝒏 movement. You want the tip to be responding like directly to the impulse from the ground. And it starts like hardly any kind of movement, like millimeter kind of movement. That sense of I can move it with the ground, and then I can, once I can get that, I can kind of basically do whatever movement. Hopefully, that's the idea. Not always the case, but anyway. Right. Yeah, okay, good. So that's kind of in the area of like 𝒊𝒔𝒏𝒕. Think now a little bit more like 𝒂𝒄𝒏𝒕. Again, you've got the hands now working a bit more of a circular path, so they're kind of circling in front of the body. Again, just play with a kind of short movement. So the elbows are hardly leaving the body, or the elbows are hardly grazing through the movement. But again, think about really affecting the tip. So really play with this one. You can think about number 5 in terms of the spirit. You can also think about like 6 and 7. Anything where I'm getting the arms working. You've got obviously these kind of circular movements. You also got these kind of thrusting out movements. They work on a very similar coordination. So, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, there was one exercise I forgot to do in the workshop. We'll do it now. So you basically write your name with the tip of the sword. So you do it with both sides. Keep the body neutral, but just imagine with the tip of it, you actually draw your name. If you've got a really short name, then you do all of it. Do your last name as well. But imagine you're really drawing big, like cursive scripts, like the main thing you want to do, apart from achieving the writing, feel where it's actually coming from. So if I lock the body, obviously it's just going to be the wrist, but feel that all those motions are going to be coming from or have a relationship with the ground and with the structure below it. So just play with it. If you don't like your own name, write someone else's. So you can play with it. Right. Yeah. No, that's it. Right. Yeah. This is a really simple exercise for getting like the whole body, just you've got an intent to do something and the whole body just has to get behind it, otherwise it's really difficult. So you've not really got a choice with this, you just connect. It just happens. Right. Yeah, right. Great, keep the motion going. Now it's if you're gonna write it in the room. So you write it now 4-dimensionally rather than just in front of you. Think about actually in motion. You're kind of like you've got a spray kind of stuff, so you're kind of write the whole thing and make it, you can make it as kind of flexible as you want, but the key thing now again is getting the body in motion and the whole body meeting that motion at the same time as you're doing like a finer movement with the upper body. Just play with it a little bit. You can also do this one-handed as well if you want to make it challenging. So really play with the levels as well, kind of up the top and down as well. So you're kind of challenging the bodies. organization to continue the motion. Oh, my name, yeah. Yeah. There we go. Right. That's. Yeah. Yeah, the other thing you can do to make this difficult, because we're doing a lot, obviously sword work, we're doing a lot of it's in the front of the body. Think also about really kind of moving back with it as well. So a lot of the exercise we do, also partner work and Mitachi work, involves going backwards with it. So being able to let the body kind of press backwards into the space without losing the front. But having that ability to kind of roll the body backwards and keep this going in the front, it's kind of tricky. So play with kind of rotating his face, moving backwards, play with one arm. So, yeah, good. Yeah, good. So this is in my book of silly exercises that are actually very effective when you do them kind of with a good mindset. So play now with like a cutting movement, but again, just play first with like a shomanuchi, but the sense of just this kind of the 50% of it. So you got to kind of raise up, cut down, play with like a zengo and a motion. Again, the key thing now is that arc as you descend the sword. There. Really play with that sense of like entering the ground with the body, working with a nice straight line movement. That's you want something quite soft. Really placing this walking into the ground through the feet. Nice. Very good. Yeah, also play with backwards movements as well. A lot of time we do all the 𝒊𝒏 work's kind of frontal, so allow it to kind of move backwards in space. Rotation work also, just to kind of challenge the body. That's so nice. So nice. Right, and keep this going, keep those movements going, but every so often, really finish the cut. So you're really finishing the cut into the ground, come to like a full stop with it, and then go back into this motion. So you're kind of playing with finding the ground. Bump, 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 and then when you feel it, bump, really come right into the ground with the cut. Back into motion. Boom. 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 Great. Keep the Shomanuchi now. Just start to bring in your Komanuchi. So again, you've got that sense where the arms can now start to be free. And again, think about the idea. Visually, I'm trying to affect the tip of the sword right away. So I'm trying to take it into a circular path with that motion. And again, just play with like this kind of area, coming up a little bit higher towards the head. And then the third level is finding the strike, or finding the ground. So play with the connection. That's nice. Good. Nice. Great. Now just change the idea slightly. You want to find the full focus in it this way. But what I want you to feel now is the raise after the finish. So just play now with how you go from that position, that back into movement. So the main thing to feel here is, especially when you do this in a long string of movements, notice that the body starts to get kind of pulled forward, the shoulders start to get engaged like this way. And then if I feel like I'm in the focus here in the shoulders, as I go to move the sword, what needs to happen for the body to do, unless I'm going to really come out of balance, is for the shoulders to come back in and then come to this position. So just watch this, especially when we're doing these kind of movements, the tendencies for the shoulders start to get drawn out of the body, out to the structure. So just play now with that. And then again, the ability to just move away from it or move out of it. So you've got, again, play with the connection, play with the cup, go from the top of the head, and then every once in a while find a focus, and then spring out of it to another movement. And it doesn't have to be another cut, it can just be kind of moving out of it, just a kind of raising movement or immobilizing out of it. The key thing to think about now is like how you're organizing, again, the body with the ground to ride that impulse from the strike. And you want it to be as easy as possible. You want kind of no extra movements, no real stress on the body, especially the shoulders. Yeah. That's good. Great. Okay, very good.
Michael?
Yeah, sure.
This actually reminds me of some judo drills that I did in the past. You're not fully grounded, but you're actively repeating your movement. And then at a certain moment, you actually push through the movement. So you're really conditioning your body to ground.
Yeah.
And stay on the ball of your feet instead of completely grounded in the movement. But when you ground completely, then you go down and you up.
Yeah, great drill. But that's the same. That's exactly the same. That's exactly the drill. Yeah, with the sword. So yeah, that's a good. But yeah, and also that it's like what I like about those drills is like I need stability obviously, but mobility is the big thing. Like one without the other won't work. especially in judo, grappling, like those kind of things. The same with sword. It's like I have stability. I'm just rigid. I have no mobility. What's the point? So.
But even in Taijutsu, it doesn't even matter. You need the movement and the stability in combination to actually put some power behind your, because otherwise it's just something what is completely empty, and that is something you see very often.
Right. But it's also people have an idea. It's also like I'm going to add power into it with some where from. Like, where does power come from? It's only going to come from the ground and your relation to it. So the movement is the power of the movement is the power. That's it. That's all that's going to come, and then how I'm organizing the body. So but people think like I'm going to add to it somehow. It's just tension with it. It's just like tension you're adding with the ground with the limbs. But yeah, so. And this is also trying to make it easy, but obviously the body's in this like elastic tension.
Yeah,
that's the kind of
the elastic tension that you continually to stretch, unstretch, stretch, release, stretch, release, stretch, release.
Right. Yeah,
focus.
Yeah, exactly that. Totally.
I think the only downside is if when you're going to do this with an actual uke, she is not prepared that you are going this way.
Right.
You will completely smash them because they are definitely not prepared for this movement.
Right. Yeah. This is like the best thing as well is also like do this in small steps, like these small drills. The best exercise we've got with this is 𝒊𝒔𝒏𝒂𝒕 from standing. 𝒊𝒒𝒏𝒂𝒏 from standing. This doesn't make sense. From 𝒊𝒂𝒏𝒂𝒏 that exercise, but standing up, doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about getting them to the ground or anything. I'm just looking like how do I affect the spine? How do I trap them in the feet, basically? So that exercise is like this is the best exercise we've got in terms of this, like as a drill, and being playful for it. So those kind of drills are great. And then if you can take that feeling to like go into a 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒏 kind of space with some, but obviously you need. You need to know what's coming, which is hard when it's a free 𝒉𝒂𝒂𝒏, but anyway.
And you need a uke that is able to actually receive, to take it, because if you're going to do this, what we're doing now, with the intention that you could do it, you smash someone completely in the mat without them realizing what actually happens, because there is no power from the upper body.
Right. And that's like, it's dangerous, but this is a success as well. Like, whoa, this could work. Oh, shit.
Which reminds me of summer camp this year with Lewis demonstrating Sankyo, probably the Ura version on Anita, who's a very small but very agile lady. And he spun around and everyone winced, including, I think, Lewis. She could take the ukemi, so, she landed it gracefully in one piece. If it had been me or Bernie, we would have hit the ground like a sack of potatoes.
Adrian, I'm relatively flexible, but you would probably have heard it somewhere in the Alps echoing.
And I'm relatively sack-like as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. We'll do that. Okay. Okay, that. Yeah, perfect. Okay, great. Go to this now like a within mind, like Tolkien and a Gary. Do like 3 cuts at a time, which is like a good number. So I've got kind of three chances to do it. Take a break in between. You don't want to do this like full, just cutting kind of in repetition. So just play with like Showman, Yokomen, Skeet if you want. But the main thing now is, again, that sense that you're going to find the ground through the cut and then take it. So the feet now have especially what Benny was saying about staying on the ball of the foot and keeping the weight here in the ball of the foot, rather than that sense of like I'm going to kind of ground the full foot down and then kind of move. So you don't want to stomp with this. You really want to sense that you're really mobile. And again, play with the movements. It's not necessarily about like forward motion. It's really any motion. You think about the work we do in the kumitachi when you go into 𝒖𝒂𝒿. But anyway, really think about now connecting the grounding in the feet, the sword together. But just play with like 3, go into a little bit of motion so you keep the body moving. 3 full cuts, whatever, showing your 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒕𝒔. Let the last one really ground and settle, and then go into motion. Right. Great. So again, this is really like intention training as well. So the phrase I like with this is Linford Christie, the sprinter. He had this phrase that was when someone asked him like, when did you go on when you got the bang, and he said on the B of the bang, basically. So this was like his thing was like he's gone, he's already gone. So this is the same kind of thing. You want the sense that I'm not waiting for, like, so normally we've got like that and I allow it to settle. What you want to do now is on that impulse, that take it up into the movement. So really play now with the sense that you've got the ground here, but that movement now that translates straight back into the center. So you're wanting that impulse now to, without that jumping out the ground, take it and move with it. And if you do this in 3 sets, in 3 cuts, it's a really good kind of practice. But the main thing's feeling that take it. So you go right on the initial impulse. There's no kind of space between it. Okay, great. So freestyle is usually great, and that's why I kind of play with it, but also going to like a simple set really helps as well. So this is the kind of set I do a lot with, like a 3 movement set. I teach it a lot as well, so you've seen it all before. So this one's like a front 𝒊𝒔𝒏𝒈 here, and then coming up to the top, and then shifting into the left side with a cut this way. So it's kind of nice basic set, but it gives you something to kind of focus on. I've got a set, and then I can go directly into the feeling. But that's the kind of true kind of use of these kind of form trainings, not to kind of train so much patterns, but being able to get into the feeling of the movement. And because it's so simple, I can start to work it on that level. It's not it. And so you can sustain that 𝒖𝒂𝒿 through it. So you go bam, bam, bam. The one at the top's got a slightly different feeling. Yeah. So. No, it's nice. Very nice. Tricky. Great. So the main issue with kindergarten, especially when you start to go fast with it, is this feeling of losing the body, so that the body gets kind of pulled out. This pattern exaggerates it as well. So what tends to happen is start to lose the body. So the body starts to get, rather than the sword being controlled by the body's being pulled out by the sword. So it's like throwing the sword basically. So it's like the sword starts to throw itself, like it's got a life of its own. Really get that sense that you're totally under control of the sword, and get the feeling again. You'll want to really keep a kind of contained feeling with it. That's tricky to kind of keep in motion and also keep with the extension as well. So these are the big kind of issues with the kindergarten. Apart from going fast and going light, actually losing the connection with the sword. But that's the challenge of the just going deeper into that. Right. Last minute, so just use that kind of 3 sets of kind of stepping off. You can keep it, or you can just start to alter it, but start now from a position of movement. So you're already in motion by the time you're kind of finding it. So again, not so hard to kind of find this from a static position from a start, but play now with really going from motion. And play with any kind of pattern, keep it kind of relatively short, with just 2 movements, but try and keep that sense that you're keeping the impulse up, or sustaining the impulse through the Perfect. Okay, great. Great, we'll stop there. Also, one other point is try this also going backwards as well. So when we go to kindergarten, we're at the tendency stop, I'm going in with it, but because it's just about movement, you can do this in any direction. But especially important for us, kindergarten work going backwards, especially when you're going into the 𝒂𝒂𝒕 later. This idea of being able to hold the space and travel, mobilize backwards with the body is also important. So play with those on that level. We'll kind of continue this as a kind of theme, running theme. Anyway. Okay, let's bow up. Great. Domo arigato. Right. Great. Here we go.